How are you?
Hey, I'm good. Thanks for doing this. Sorry, I'm
Oh,
2 minutes
problem.
late.
That's not a problem. Thank you for doing this. It's nice to meet you.
It's great to see you too. I like
Cool.
the guitars in the back. I didn't have much of a backdrop because I'm in a hotel.
Oh, no, it's out of that's where I teach, so it's like they're everywhere.
That's awesome. Wow. I love it.
All right, cool. So let's talk first, if we could, about your current tour.
Yeah.
Tell me what to expect.
We're out doing a bunch of tour dates this year, and it's been all over the map. I mean, we've been around the world and we'll keep going around the world. I just finished opening for Kool and the Gang a couple nights ago. And
Okay.
let me just say that was awesome. And then I sat in with them, so that made it even, more
Sure.
my head exploding. But it's always fun to, play with your heroes or people who wrote great songs. We're doing Summerfest, which is the biggest festival in the US, this coming week. And, that's always just a total shot in the arm. And we're making our way around. I'm touring with Peter White and Vincent Ingala, doing a few dates in Catalina Island for the Catalina Island Jazz Festival. We're also doing Thornton Winery, which is always a blast. And then I'm taking my group. I always host what I call Mindi Abair's Wine and Jazz Adventures, and we've gone all around the world with it. We finished one in Napa well, actually, two of them we did in Napa earlier this year, and we're doing 2 weeks of them in Tuscany in the fall. So I'm kind of gearing up for that and making sure all the music's great. We curate these 6 days of like amazing five-star resort, and we curate wineries and Michelin-starred restaurants and concerts every day. So that's an undertaking. And then my Christmas tour is going to be amazing. I think it's going to be 21 or 22 dates in between Thanksgiving and Christmas, with Lindsay Webster and Marcus Anderson. And then I've got my New Year's Eve that I'm hosting in San Diego, and that's got a bunch of cool artists, Vincent Ingala and Rebecca Jade. Pat Prescott is hosting it, who does BGO up there. She's awesome. And DW3 and Ellis Hall, and just so many cool people. I'm going to forget half of them, but that'll be the way to ring in the new year. Oh my
Yeah,
God,
yeah.
I'm tired just thinking about my tour schedule coming up.
I was gonna say you're not busy at all. All
It's good
right.
to be busy.
It is. I can attest to that. It is good to be busy. So, in terms of like your own band, because your music is quite eclectic. I mean, you bring in all these different styles and things.
Yeah.
How big of a group are you going out with, and is it going to be like kind of like when I hit random on your music, and some of it's blues and some of it's more in the contemporary jazz field, and it's all awesome, but it's various genres. So is it centralized to a certain genre, or is it just your your full experience, the full you?
Yeah, it's all of me. And, probably it's more jazz than blues or rock.
Right.
But, when I come to New Jersey to play, which I can't wait, my husband's from New Jersey, by the way.
Oh,
So
all right.
I'm
Nice.
totally excited. He's psyched. We're going to do a wine tasting, which is my husband's, calling. It's been his job for 25 years running wineries, and now he runs our company, Wine and Jazz. So to bring my Jersey boy back to Jersey is going to be great. And we're bringing my full band. And that's who's going on the road with me everywhere. You know what? I do a different set list every night. And I travel with four guys. It's bass, drums, guitar, and keys, and
Mhm.
me. Everyone sings. And so we just kind of run the gamut of all my songs from the beginning to the end. I think I've probably got 13 or 14 albums now. And so we just mix it up between albums. I did 4 blues rock records in there as Mindi Abair and the Bone Shakers. So we usually throw in a song or two of blues, just to kind of, give it a little gumption there, and, give a little mojo in there. But the majority of it is jazz, from my career, over the last 22 22, 23 years. And then we'll throw in a couple cool covers that I love.
Mhm. Cool. Yeah, it's interesting because recently I had Esperanza Spalding on the show and interviewed her, and similar, like, her music's quite varied, and it was just they were nice enough to invite me as a guest, and really just a collection of a great career, and a continuing career. That's
Yeah, I
cool.
kind of feel like if you just play things that sound like your album, um,
Mhm.
that are carbon copies of your album, why come see me?
Right.
It's fun to get out of the house and all, but I really want to give people something they can't buy on a record and make it different and expand it. And the songs they know, expand those and put them into different atmospheres. And so we have fun, just kind of going all over the map and having fun with the songs that are classics of mine, but then throwing in an oddity that people maybe wouldn't know from me, but a song that I love, and then throwing in some stuff from the blues world that maybe someone who just knew my jazz career wouldn't know, but would like. And then I adjust it every night. Like for Summerfest, we're literally playing in between Three Dog Night and Little River Band.
Okay.
So, I'm going to adjust thinking, oh, okay, what'll kind of mix in with that and be my music that'll make for a fun night for everyone who comes to the show.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. So like in terms of projects or future projects or styles, is there any style or project that you are looking forward to or wish to explore? Like
I'm
the
working
style?
on a record right now that's pretty fun. It's basically a record that just came out of me wanting to work with my friend Wayne. And
Okay.
we've made music together for years and written music together. And he's worked on a lot of my records, but we've just been friends over the years. And we finally looked at each other and went, come on, let's make some music. That's what we do as musicians, we play with our friends. So we started working on what is now a record, and we just had fun writing. And there was no thought of where's this going to fit or what radio station is going to play this or, is this jazz or is this, pop or whatever. But it's turned out to be very pop, very modern driven kind of production and direction, but very much melody driven from me. So it is very contemporary jazz in the sense that the melodies and the hooks and that kind of stuff. But boy, the production is just really interesting and kind of cool sonic atmospheres. So it's a moody record. It's not one of those rockers. It's definitely kind of moody and sonically interesting. So I look forward to getting that out. And as you said, as you asked, other things that I love. I'm going on our Christmas tour this year, and it's my I Can't Wait for Christmas tour. So
Okay.
I'm going to come out with a Christmas album as well. And I just love Christmas music. I'm such a dork for great Christmas music. It's just melodically beautiful, and the songs are uplifting and joyful. And so I'm going to have fun. We're going in the studio in July to record that album.
Right. Christmas in July. That makes sense. Yeah. That's
Someone's got to do it. I mean, I'm going to decorate up and get a few Santa hats and try and get in the spirit.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I just booked a whole bunch of gigs, Christmas in July gigs. It's like it's become more and more of a thing.
Oh, so you're actually playing. I mean, I'm in a studio somewhere, holed up, doing Christmas music, but you're actually out doing a Christmas show in July?
Oh yeah, yeah. So yeah, I play a lot. I'm in New Jersey right now,
Yeah.
it's by the Jersey Shore, Asbury Park kind of area. So there are a lot of like local gigs in the Red Bank, Asbury Park. Of course, New York's not too far. So I'm like, the guy around here. If you need a bass player, I'm one of the, double bass is my main instrument, but electric, and I play guitar with people as well. So yeah, I'm out doing a thing, not at the level that you're doing it right now, but I run a music school, teach at a college, write books on music. So it's music, music, music all the
I
time.
think what you do is really amazing because you're a player, you're out there, you're doing it, you're living it, but yet you're giving back as a teacher and passing it on. And that's a huge, huge thing that people overlook because music isn't something that you really learn from a textbook. It's something that's personal. It's something really handed down. So respect for all that you do. It's really amazing.
I appreciate you saying that. Thanks so much. Yeah, but I mean, performance is always going to be a part of it because that's what got us into it, you know. At least
It's
me,
a great drug.
it
It's the
is.
best.
It is. That's great. So talking about playing music, like if I could go back, tell me a little bit about your upbringing. I think I understand that your parents were musicians, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct? Or
My mom doesn't play. She's a great audience.
okay,
But my dad plays saxophone, keyboards, bass, and from the earliest moments, it was always noisy. I grew up on the road with his band. It was called the Entertainers.
yeah,
And we didn't have a house until I was probably 4 or 5, when the band broke up. So we just traveled. It was just all motels. Every childhood picture of me is like packing the band truck or, at a motel somewhere.
sure.
So that was a wild way to grow up. And I was basically raised by the guys in the band who were awesome. My grandmother was an opera singer,
Oh, wow.
and she had this beautiful coloratura soprano voice, and she was everything stereotypically, you know, um, that you think of as an opera singer, just a big woman, big personality. And she was awesome. It was fun to be around music. She'd come over and play, Beethoven, and then play an aria and sing it with me. And my dad was off playing rock and roll, and I'd come home from school, and they'd be recording drums in my closet, or it would just be just nuttiness. So I grew up with a lot of different music around, and it was just something that was our normal. So what a beautiful way to kind of grow up and have music at your fingertips every moment.
Yeah, yeah. And it's funny, I wonder what you would think about this because it's, kind of being in different worlds, say the opera world and the rock or jazz world. These musicians are all they're also warm and so much the same. I mean, I remember playing, of all things, it was what was it? It was in upstate New York. I was asked to play for a bunch of opera singers. It turned out they were some of the most well-known opera singers in the world. I had no idea. And we
Yeah.
were playing, they wanted to do a jazz standards thing. And I've never seen people party harder than these, older opera singers. And it was just such a cool community, and you have these images sometimes of maybe the classical world being a little stiff or something like that, but it's not necessarily that way.
No, I think there's really something that connects us, and the jokes are different in the classical world than the jazz world usually. But yeah, they're amazing people, and they're creative, and they've spent their life making music. And I love that. I love delving in to different styles and kind of different areas that I don't, I'm not drawn to usually. And, these wine and jazz adventures that we started putting on a couple years ago, it's really enabled me to delve into different music. We did one in Spain. And so I hired all these Spanish musicians and a flamenco guitarist. And I'm sitting in with him just thinking, wow, if you told me, growing up in Florida, that I'd be in Spain sitting in with this amazing flamenco guitarist or this Portuguese singer, and, kind of just, it gives me a chance to open up and learn and grow. And that's something that I think, we all need to do. It helps. It inspires.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah. I mean, so like growing up, who were some of your earliest influences, or is there a certain style of music you were listening to more of at that time?
I was a total pop kid. I mean, I listened to the radio,
Right.
and watched MTV.
Yeah.
So it was real simple who my influences were. I thought Heart was amazing. I totally wanted to be the third member of the band Heart.
Sure.
I loved Tina Turner. I
Mhm.
loved Springsteen. Like the big man was
Right.
everything. The night I got to play with Springsteen was just the biggest check off list of something I never thought would happen in my life. And it was just unbelievable. But yeah, I was listening to a lot of rock, and I loved the energy of it. And I loved, just the fact that they would give you so much emotion. And, like Bruce, I mean, by the end of a concert, he's sweat off, 5 pounds, and he's still in it with you. He's still giving you everything and telling you stories. I wanted to be that artist, and I didn't really know musical genres enough. By the time I got a little older and got in high school, my father brought me to a David Sanborn concert,
Sure.
and the light bulb just went off. David's band it was like a rock band. Hiram Bullock is like, wheeling around, just playing all this cool stuff. And Marcus Miller is just the coolest guy on the planet. And these guys were a rock band, and David was the lead singer. He just wasn't singing, he was playing a saxophone. And that made all the sense in the world to me. And I finally realized all these artists that I saw, I couldn't sing like Tina Turner, but on a saxophone, I could scream like Tina Turner, or I
Yeah.
could whisper like, other singers. So it was really fun for me to kind of take what I had learned from the pop and the rock world and move it into jazz. And when I finally went to college, I remember people asking me, so do you listen to, traditional jazz or contemporary jazz? And I didn't even know what any of that meant. So I started, listening to Miles Davis, who I'd never heard, and Cannonball Adderley, who I remember my father talking about, but who wants to listen to what their father listened to? And all of a sudden I thought, oh, dad's kind of cool, I guess. And, listening to all these players, Wayne Shorter and Michael Brecker and Coltrane, and just thinking, wow, there's this whole other world. But I came into it backwards from most people.
Yeah, that's interesting. Very much a similar type of experience. When I get to Berklee, I really kind of learned what real, what traditional or jazz was. But
Yeah.
I have to ask. So I'm about 10 minutes from where Bruce Springsteen is, and he rehearses at the college that I teach at, Monmouth University.
Awesome.
So like my friends and fans would want to know your experience a little bit more with Springsteen, because I didn't even know that you had played with him. How did that come to be?
This came to be in the weirdest and most amazing way. Um, I was scheduled to play this Newport Beach Jazz Festival. It's a series, and Max Weinberg was playing the same series, just a different night.
Sure.
Um, right before Max was supposed to play his night at the Hyatt Newport Beach, this series, Clarence Clemens passed away. Passed
Okay.
away 3 days before his show.
Hmm.
And, the whole world is reeling from the passing of Clarence. No one thought he, would ever die. I sure didn't. And the promoter called me, and I had made a post just saying how inspired I was by Clarence Clemens, that I know most jazz people aren't. That's like a bad word. Ooh, Clarence Clemens, he's not jazz. But I was such a fan. I knew every solo. I knew every song. And he said, I know what a fan you are of Clarence, and Max is playing. Um, you know, would you want to come down and maybe play a song that, play Clarence's part? And I just thought, uh, yeah, of course, that'd be amazing. So he hooked me up with Max. And it was a show that Max Weinberg was doing with Bill Champlin, the guy from the band Chicago for many years. So I went to their rehearsal, and we just played through a few things, and a few songs were Bruce. We played Ramrod, we played a few others. And you know what? Max just kind of walked me through. He's like, this is the thought process with Bruce and with Clarence, and these solos are what they are. They're a part of the music, and they're, a part of uh, everything, the picture of it. So don't mess with it. Don't improvise. Play it, And so, okay. And so I did that. And after that show, they asked me to go on the road. They're like, hey, what are you doing for the next month or so? And I was actually free. I went out with them, and we changed it to the Max Weinberg, Bill Champlin, Mindi Abair show. And I put a few of my songs. We became friends. And it was just so fun. These guys are so inspiring. Max is amazing. He's the godfather. I mean, so I get a call from Max one night, and he goes, this is a little last minute, but Bruce Springsteen is playing the Beacon Theater tomorrow night, and we don't have anyone to do Clarence's part. And it's a charity event. It's Stand Up for Heroes. And if you would come in, I know you know the songs and the solos, and I would be, I would be honored if you'd come in. And I just thought, what? I was a blur to the plane. Let me just put it that way. It was like, boom.
Right.
And I went there and went to the Beacon Theater, and I played Spirit in the Night with them. And it was the high of a lifetime. And I mean, I think, Bruce was definitely in a place where he had just lost Clarence, and it was really hard. And he started playing, he knew the sax solo was coming up, and he just looked at me and he was like, take it. And he jumped off the stage and started surfing the audience chairs. And I'm watching him, just a fan, just going, this is the coolest. Oh, play the solo. Oh my God, I got to keep the solo in my mind, So it was hard to play that role and fill those large shoes in so many ways, and keep my head about me while I was just watching everything going around. And I'm such a Bruce fan that I was losing my mind.
Yeah, it's funny with him. I mean, in this area, he's like such a grounded guy and so accessible. Like my daughter waited on him like a couple months ago, and I miss him by 5 minutes all the time, but he's around. And he just pops up, takes pictures of people, and sits in with all the local bands. It's like, it's, the
Super
most,
cool.
yeah, it is super cool.
And Max is that way,
Yeah,
Max is an amazing guy, and he just paved the way for me, and what a beautiful thing. So we get to play together every once in a while, but that was the one time I got to play with Bruce, and it was just amazing.
that's cool. Yeah, it seems like you have a lot of those experiences where, big, really huge name people, that you've had a chance to be around and work with. But if I
I've been
could,
lucky.
no, you're very good as well. You've earned that, right?
Thank
Um,
you.
so the college experience, if I could, you
Yeah.
went first. It was North Florida, is that correct?
Yeah. University of North Florida for a year.
And then you found your way to Berklee. So how did that come to be, and what was that experience like for you?
Because you went there.
Different for everybody.
It is. No, you're totally right. I went to University of North Florida for a year, and the guy who started that program was a guy, Rich Madison, who was a teacher at North Texas State University. So he was the improvisation teacher and taught a lot of theory and stuff like that, composition. So he started this program at University of North Florida for their jazz program. And I was that first year. And so he kind of picked people from around the country, and he gave me a full scholarship, which was great because I didn't have a cent to my name, nor did my parents. So I just thought, wow, North Texas State's guy is starting this thing in Florida where I'm from. This is incredible. And I got into the program, and it was amazing. I was so green. I just knew I wanted to play. And they just stuck me in the middle of all these amazing bands and ensembles and lessons. I had never taken saxophone lessons. So here I had this great guy, Bill Prince, as a saxophone teacher. He was unbelievable. What I realized halfway through that year was, traditional jazz was something I didn't know anything about. And it wasn't my passion. I was now listening to David Sanborn and the Yellow Jackets
Right, right.
and, Steely Dan and, all these different bands that weren't cool to the traditional jazz guys. And I remember having these conversations that, you're selling out. This is the tradition. And I really thought it through and just thought, well, no, I would be selling out if I stayed here and played traditional jazz because it was the tradition. This is the music that moves me, that I want to, that I just want to play all day. And so I looked for schools that were more contemporary, that had a broader stroke with, what they taught and what they accepted. So Berklee was that for me. And I got a half scholarship to Berklee. So I worked my way through, but that half scholarship made it doable.
Yeah.
And it was a great, great experience. I mean, I was in rock ensembles, funk ensembles. I was Wayne Shorter in the Wayne Shorter ensemble. I was Cannonball Adderley in the Cannonball Adderley ensemble. And I would do, at night I would do these sessions and everything for friends and sing country music. And I was playing like 6 nights a week in Boston in a fusion band, a Greek band, a wedding band, a top 40 band. It was just crazy. I was just everywhere making music, and Berklee enabled that. And I thank them. And you know what? It was really cool that there were 3% women at that time at Berklee. And they were super cool. They didn't care if I was a woman or a man or black or white or gay or straight. It was just like, hey, if you can play, hey, you want to come in and jam? And I love that aspect of Berklee, and I thank them for that.
Yeah, yeah, I think you kind of summed it up a little, especially that time period. It's funny. My last 4 or 5 people I've interviewed have all been either Berklee professors or associated with Berklee in some ways, and a lot of my students here from the academy wound up going there too.
Yeah,
And we were there roughly around the same. I was 94 to 98. So,
yeah,
I mean, I think at that time period, particularly, like, what you learned, the classrooms were great, but it was like at night you just played all the time, meeting and all this access to all these international students. There weren't a lot of women. I was like the one person with a girlfriend, you
yeah.
know, but who happens to now be my wife. She went there, but it's like,
Ah,
yeah, it was such a cool thing. And then you mentioned, or you didn't mention, but I was looking in one of your bios that you had done some stuff with George Garzone. He was one of your teachers.
yeah. I love George Garzone. I mean, my main sax teacher was Joe Viola, who I would liken to Yoda,
Hmm.
Yoda of the saxophone. He was just, he knew it all. He was amazing. George was, this beautiful dark mind. You'd walk into his office and he'd turn off all the lights and he'd play some cluster chord on the piano. And he'd
Yeah,
be so intent. What is the darkest note in that chord? And to him, there was an answer to that question that was correct or not correct. And
right.
we'd sit and discuss it. And then we'd play these things that he would create. And it was just all making my mind work in a different way. And I'm a pretty simple person. My career has been pop and contemporary jazz. There's nothing outside jazz about my career, but he made me think differently, and he opened my mind to just such different ways to view music. And he's been a friend. I mean, we have coffee and sometimes when I come out to Boston and just hang out, and I love the way he thinks and works and lives.
Yeah, that's so cool. Because like, seemingly if you listen to sort of his playing style as opposed to yours, you would think it's almost two different worlds. I mean, playing with the fringe and what he
Yeah.
was doing back then, some avant-garde things. And my experience with George was pretty unique. Like he was friendly, let's say, with the piano player I was working with weekly, and he would come sit in all the time. And also when you talk to a guy like that, you have to sort of read between the lines. He doesn't just give you instruction. It's like you said, it's a little bit, I don't know, it's thought provoking, you know.
Yeah.
And there was just
Yeah.
so many people like that around that area at the time, and it was so cool. I don't know if he would necessarily remember me, but for about a period of a year, he would come, twice a month or so, and play a couple songs and have a drink, and he was a nice guy.
That's the beauty of being in that whole Berklee world, because you've just got these people as the teachers and as the kind of players around that are phenomenal and that live, eat, breathe music. And then we as the students, we were just in that air. We were breathing that air, and it was just 24/7 of making music and learning things and listening. Oh, what are you doing? Ooh, you listen to that band, and I just soaked in so much just from, like you said, the surrounding, kind of atmosphere of it all, that we were all playing with each other or making records with each other or playing in each other's bands or writing songs with each other. And those have turned into really lasting friendships. So many of the people that were in my circle at Berklee. I mean, I just made a record and Abraham Laboriel was playing drums, and
Right.
he was my drummer friend in college. And Layla Hathaway, the same thing, she's been on a few of my records, but we were pals in college. So to bring it back to those relationships and watch each other grow and morph and kind of do what we do, it's a pretty cool thing. Those relationships are so much about what'll make you grow.
Yeah, and the other cool thing is like you just said, like these people who are just your friends,
Yeah.
now that years have passed, a lot of them are really doing well in the music industry. I mean, I just remember having to do those, it just came to mind doing the because as a scholarship student, you had to do the jury, like the ranking systems, and like the drummer that I'm playing with is Antonio Sanchez. Like he's like a great,
Such a fan of his. That
right.
Bad Hombre record was amazing.
And I knew he was special even then, but he was way above my level. But yeah, it was just like this guy, that's so cool.
I
Um,
love that. So we
yeah,
did have the same kind of thing at Berklee, that it was just this transformative few years.
yeah, and I wouldn't necessarily, I never would say anything negative about Berkeley, but there was a change that I saw um, once as I was leaving. So my wife was also a saxophone player there,
Yeah.
and after that there was more of the music education, more contemporary music programs. It got much bigger, and now it's just like, you know, uh,
It's huge now. I know I go back to do a master class here and there, and I'm just, wow, there's that building, and wow, there's that studio. Wow, ooh,
right. Yeah. So it's cool. That's great. Thanks for sharing that with me.
Yeah.
So, following that, you went to Los Angeles. Is that what the path was after Berkeley?
You know what? I just decided um, to move to Los Angeles. I figured, that's where it's all going on. I had this weird thing. All of us Berklee students, um, Abraham Laboriel actually plays into this. He got a call from Barry Manilow,
Okay.
and Barry Manilow said, "I need a whole new band. And I know you're at Berklee and you know the Cats. Put a band of the Cats together and come audition for me." So Abe did, and I was the sax player. And I mean, everyone in the band was just phenomenal, right? So we flew to LA, flew us all out. We rehearsed. We did the whole audition. We were so wrong for him. I mean, Abraham had his whole head shaved with like a little ponytail up on top. I had the sides of my head shaved with like hair down to my butt. Um, the percussionists looked like Tarzan. We were a bunch of misfits for someone like Barry Manilow. We were all good musicians. We did not get the gig, but I'm walking around SIR in LA and just thought, this is it. I got to move. I didn't like the cold. I grew up in Florida, and I literally just packed up everything in my little Civic and drove across the country. And so you think you're going to take over LA, but you realize LA has amazing saxophone players. They don't need you. Um, so I really had to just kind of find my own and start my own band out there, and just go for it. And it was the right place for me to move. But it took a while to kind of, get my feet on the ground.
Yeah. So when you did get your feet on the ground, I mean, some major tours, right? Like how long until you kind of hook up with, say, like a Backstreet Boys, I see there, or Adam Sandler, something like that.
Yeah, it's funny. I would play anywhere they let me play. I would play like on the steps of the Capitol building, or I would play, at the LA Marathon scene, or I would play in the men's underwear department at Macy's. I would play in hotel lobbies, strolling around and stuff. And I played on the street. So I would go out to Third Street Promenade down by the beach and just put out my case and just play. And one day, Bobby Lyle walked by, and Bobby is an amazing keyboardist. He's got a long-standing jazz career in contemporary jazz. And he literally stuck around and just said, you know what? You're really good. Would you want to play on my new record and go on the road with me in my band?" And I mean, his band was just crazy amazing. It was Alfonso Johnson on bass and Al McKay from Earth, Wind and Fire on guitar. These guys took me under their wing. They were gentlemen. They just showed me how to be a pro. And I toured everywhere with them. So Bobby Lyle took me on the road for probably 5, 6 years. I went to Jonathan Butler after that, Tina Marie, Backstreet Boys called, and I just thought, wait, what? But that was too fun to not do. I got to see the world for a couple years and have pink and blue and purple hair and just, see the world like a rock star. And I'll never forget that. It was amazing. Adam Sandler, someone had seen me play a wedding,
Yep.
and they took my card. And then I got a call from Adam Sandler's people, who was Waddy Wachtel at the time. Waddy was his music director. And for people who don't know who Waddy is, he's been Stevie Nicks' music director for a million years, since the 1970s. And, he's basically Keith Richards when Keith Richards can't be Keith Richards. He plays in the Expensive Winos, and he's amazing. So after 200 girls going through, they wanted someone who could sing, and they wanted one of those singers who could play sax. I got the job, and it was great. And, Sandler loves Bruce Springsteen possibly more than I do. I don't know. We could fight that out. But we did a couple Bruce songs, and I got to be the big man, and it was awesome. So yeah, those things happened just out of nowhere all the time, me trying to be a solo artist. And finally, when I was going on the road with Duran Duran for their comeback tour to America, I just said to John Taylor, I was like, my album just came out, and I got to go be me. And this is the hardest thing in the world to do, to not go on your tour, but I've got to go give this a real shot and go on the road and be me. And he totally understood. But I just felt like,
Yeah, I mean,
what am I going to do?
and Durant, he's a major act,
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
So,
great.
the bands that I've toured with of late, it's kind of like a summer vacation, like Aerosmith, Steven Tyler asking me to go on the road with them 10 years ago. I just thought, that's my summer vacation with Aerosmith. Sure. What could go wrong there? So, I'll do things here and there that are fun, but it's my band all the time now.
That's cool. Yeah. But it's cool that you're also able to like take some of these experiences, I would imagine. And like, for example, on some of your own records, having Greg Allman and Joe Perry, Booker T. And
Yeah.
and did you meet them all like sort of through other projects, or is it just like a cold call? Hey, I got a thing going in.
No, they were all kind of different, kind of different things that I was doing. I realized at a certain point that here I had this great career in contemporary jazz. And by the time I made that record, which you're talking about, Wild Heart, that was 2013 or 14, something like that. I had this very cool contemporary jazz career, but then I was moonlighting all the time, going off and playing with people who were rock.
Right.
I would go off and play with Waddy Wachtel's band, and it was the guys from Neil Young's band and the Stones and Fleetwood Mac, and and then I'd go out and play with some blues band on the side, and then I'd go out and play this other thing with Don Was and Greg Allman and all this stuff. And I realized all the stuff I'm moonlighting is like blues and rock, and I don't bring any of that to my career. And I just thought at a certain point, okay, I got to reach out to my friends who I play for them
Right.
and do this and ask them for help to bring it into my world. And so that's what I did. For that Wild Heart record, I had played with Greg Allman with Don Was for Paul Allen's 60th birthday. And I just said, would you be into writing a song together and doing like a duet or something? And he goes, sure, darling. And I didn't expect it to come to fruition, but it did. I went to his house for 3 days and wrote this song, with his 25-year-old girlfriend and his, 26-year-old drug dealer coming in. It was nuts. It was
Yeah,
everything you'd expect.
right.
But we got this beautiful song out of it. And, the same thing with Max Weinberg. We had become such good friends. And I just said, I need you on this. I need you to help me bring what I bring to you back to my career. And the same thing with Waddy. He was on that. Booker T, I didn't know. And I must have asked 100 people how to get to Booker T because I'm just such a psycho fan. I just think the man walks on water. And we've written 3 songs together, and I'm just still enamored with how he plays and who he is and all of that. Keb Mo on that same record, we had been musical partners. I mean, from the time that no one would come see us, like 6 people would be, in some crappy club in LA, and we'd be playing, and just no one would come see us. So that was a gimme to have Keb Mo on it. And Trombone Shorty, I knew because we had been in the same circles, so I was just like, come on, play with me. Let's do something. And so that was a fun record to kind of open myself up and say, I am more than you've just seen for the past 10 or 15 years. I have this other side to me that I just haven't figured out how to put into play. And that was my record, to figure out how to put all of me into play. And it was awesome.
Yeah, and it is awesome. And it's I mean, it's funny, like if you don't know the full scope of your career, I mean, just the singing and the blues element. I mean, and it all has a certain purity and authenticity that I applaud. I think what you do is great,
Thank you.
a lot of the people I deal with, the majority of recent or get a chance to talk to are in the traditional jazz world,
Yeah.
and like you said, there is this sort of stigma, maybe perhaps, between traditional jazz and contemporary jazz, and that's like this other thing, but it's just great music, and there are people who do it well, I think, in both.
Yeah.
Well, so it's cool. So a book that I should read because I haven't had the experience, How to Play Madison Square Garden. So tell me how I get to play Madison Square Garden, because I'm still waiting.
You know what? I just felt, after so much time being in very different situations musically, on stage, that I had seen people who were remarkable, who were just amazing. But then I had seen people, going to Berklee, you meet all these people who are just musical geniuses. I mean, I would listen to these guys in the practice room next to me and just be like, oh my God, this guy is going to be the next John Coltrane. This guy is going to be the next David Sanborn. And that doesn't always happen. And why? Why doesn't that happen? So I'm just sitting, like, thinking about all this stuff. And I just thought, you can take all these classes at Berklee and the New School and North Texas State and all these great music schools. But the one class that really isn't taught is performance. And everyone in my world, and I bet a lot of the people in your world, make almost 100% of their living through being on stage, through performing, through touring, because that is your best way to make a living. It's hard to make a living through record sales. Those royalties dried up a long time ago for a lot of reasons. But to get on stage, play your music for people, that's it. And if you're not comfortable with that, you're shooting yourself in the foot. And I'm not saying you have to be, fake and everything, but I basically wrote a book telling everything that I had learned watching everyone make all these terrible mistakes. I wrote all the just downfall. Don't do this. Oh my God, don't do that. But then watching people do it right, watching Steven Tyler on stage, he's like a master class. Watching some of these bands on stage, Kiss, for all you trad jazz people, there's this band called Kiss that gets on makeup and big hair and, everything. It's like, it's a circus. But you know what? Whether you like them or not, you can learn from them. And they do a lot of things right. So the book goes from everything from, you have to know yourself and what's going to work for you and who you are as an artist and what you have to say. Then you can build on who you are and what's true to you. and create a scenario for a live show. And then there are certain things you can do in that live show to connect to people and to just create something very real that can carry you through, and you can be a great performer. So that's why the book was written.
That's really cool. And it's still available, still out there?
Yeah. You can buy it through Amazon. You can get it on my website. Yeah, everywhere. But I just think it's a fun book to read because it does make you think about things differently. And it's not, a music business book or a, how to play your instrument book. It's really how to create a live show and a live experience that builds upon your strengths and you as an artist.
Right. I think that's fantastic. Yeah. I mean, I'm definitely going to check that out. Because in a sense, like what you said, so I host like a jazz jam session in the year, a couple of them. And you're
Yeah.
right. There are just so many people that are so high level players, but they're kind of like me, knocking around, playing the $150, $200 gigs, and playing in the wedding bands and doing
Yeah.
all the work, which you did and do and did as well, right? So it's
Oh, yeah.
so it's not a this or that. It's an all encompassing thing, and I think using those connections, which is very much a Berklee thing now, that to bring it back a little full circle. Hey, will you play on my film score? Sure. Will you play on my, harmony project or whatever it is? It's forming those connections is a really important thing. And then also it is the music business. So sometimes you have to, put yourself out there and be entertaining, I suppose, right?
Yeah. I mean, and look, no one should do anything that makes them super uncomfortable.
Right.
I know my grandmother, she just suffered from incredible stage fright, and she had this beautiful voice. I mean, it was just stunning. And she was scared. And she would sing to me in our house, and it was amazing. But to watch stuff like that cripple people is rough, And so I have a whole chapter on stage fright. And so, some of those people that get really, oh my gosh, people are watching me, and that's real. It doesn't happen to me a lot, but I've been there where it does, and it chokes you, and it just brings you, and so there are ways to get around that. And, I think that it's something that every performer should really study about themselves, like take a step inward and think about performance, because it is where you're going to pay the rent.
Yeah, it's great. And I know I've kept you a while. I just want to ask you one other question, because your connection, everything's better with wine, of course. So
It is.
So can you talk about your connection to the wine industry?
Yeah, sure. Um, Look, I got older and wiser and married a wine guy.
Yeah,
Let's just
cool.
put it simply. But when I met Eric, he was running wineries, and he ran really cool wineries like Kendall Jackson and Mum Napa and Perry Jouet. So he knows his wines, he knows what he's doing. Cut to many years later, we were just sitting around realizing, okay, what we want to live our best lives. And I know that sounds just trite and all of that, but at a certain point, you do what you do, and then you think, are we living our best lives? Because we pretty much have dream jobs. I go off on the road with my band and I get to make records. My husband gets to go to these beautiful wineries and run them and be the guy. But at the end of the time, we whiteboarded it, and of course drank like 2 bottles of wine while we whiteboarded all this. But our ideas were that we wanted to be together more. We loved to travel. He loved to share wine and his knowledge of wine with people instead of corporations. And I just loved to play music around the world and get to play with different people and bring different people into my world. From that, we created our own company, and we called it wineandjazz.com. He's the wine, I'm the jazz. So I don't have to be something I'm not. I love wine, but I'm not a winemaker or, I'm not a sommelier, any of that. My husband, he's all that. So we can both have our place and be in what we love and be together. So we now travel the world together. Almost every show I do, this upcoming show in New Jersey, we're going to do this pre-show
Yep.
wine and jazz tasting. So my husband Eric hosts it and brings you through like a 3 wine tasting of our wines. We make 8 different wines a year that are all music centric with the artwork, and he has winemakers make us wine that no one else gets. And then I play music to pair with it. So it's all about pairing wine and music. And since that's our real lives, we hope that other people will like doing that as much as we do. So we have a wine club that anyone can join, wineandjazz.com. We have hundreds of members across the US. And then we take people on, these vacations, our wine and jazz adventures around the world. And then we have our New Year's Eve event, which is wine and jazz, which we have tons of bands, and then food and wine pairing and wine and music pairing. And so it's fun to marry these 2 worlds and just have fun being who we are. And I believe that I'm a genius because I get to drink wine and play music for a living. Woo!
So if he could somehow hit me to, now I shouldn't say this because I get to play, I've played pretty much all the New Jersey wineries, but we're not known for our wine. So if he can find me a good New Jersey wine, I'd be very impressed.
All right, I'll have to ask. I don't know what he knows that's on the East Coast, but I know he's been up to the Finger Lakes and stuff like that. But wine, I don't know. I'll ask.
Because we have a lot of them, and thankfully they like jazz. Maybe something have to do with you, but yeah, they all have jazz bands, and that's cool.
It goes together really well.
It does. Cool. Well, Mindy, what did I miss? Anything?
Oh God, no. It's awesome. It's really fun to sit and talk with you. And I love that we went to Berklee near the same time. I was right before you, but it's like, it's really cool because you got the same life lessons and all of it. So it's fun. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. And I hope everyone comes and sees you play. This will be featured in Jersey Jazz Magazine, as well as a couple websites and my 2 podcasts. So I would recommend to everyone who's listening to check out the show. I'll give the dates. I have it written down in the intro. And also just to check out all your fantastic albums, everything you're doing. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Now the show's going to be incredible, and come early, drink with us, go through the wine tasting. It's super fun. And it always makes the show better,
Very cool. Well, maybe I'll see you there.
I hope so. Tickets will be waiting for you if you so choose.
Oh, that would be great. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
All right. Have a good day.
You too.